Since Unsolved Mysteries was released on Netflix earlier this month, there has been no shortage of speculation about the cases covered in the latest season. But the story of Rey Rivera seems to have struck a particular chord with fans of the series, understandably producing some of the wildest theories and conspiratorial explanations regarding his unexplained death. The 32-year-old aspiring filmmaker was found dead in a lower annex of the Belvedere Hotel in Baltimore in 2008, 8 days after receiving a mysterious phone call and rushing from his house. Though he appeared to have fallen from a great height, almost nothing else about the case made sense, and the seeming contradictions at every turn prompted many internet sleuths to obsess over finding answers. Now that many people have had a chance to digest the details of the case, we thought we would offer our own list of stories similar to that of Rey Rivera. For our list, we have chosen 5 unexplained deaths that contain at least some of the most puzzling elements of the Rivera case, whether it's cryptic notes, alleged conspiracies, or questionable explanations of accidental death or suicide. Before we get to our list, don't forget to subscribe to Crime Zone for more true crime content like this, making sure to hit the notification bell to stay up to date with our latest videos. With that out of the way, here are 5 unexplained deaths for people obsessed with the Rey Rivera case. Rodney Marks was an Australian astrophysicist who worked at the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station in Antarctica. The 32-year-old was conducting research for the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory as part of a year-long contract from 1999 to 2000, having previously done similar work on the continent 2 years earlier. This meant that he was familiar with Antarctica's harsh conditions and extremely isolated winters, where those working at the station are cut off from the outside world for several months at a time. According to those he worked with, Rodney was well suited to the conditions, loving the work and endearing himself to his colleagues with his friendly personality and sense of humor. He was also dating a maintenance specialist named Sonia Walter, and the two reportedly planned to get married. On May 11, 2000, Rodney began to feel strange while walking from his research building to the South Pole Station. He was having difficulty breathing, his vision was failing, and he was feeling extremely tired. Believing that he was just experiencing a mild illness, he decided to go to bed early, hoping to sleep the symptoms off. When he awoke at 5:30 the next morning, things had only gotten worse. He began vomiting blood and decided to go and see the station's doctor, Robert Thompson. Rodney would make 3 trips to Thompson's office that day, each time in increasingly worse health. He began experiencing severe joint and stomach pain and could no longer go anywhere without sunglasses, despite the fact that it was winter on the continent and the sun had not risen for several weeks. At the same time, Rodney's mental state was also rapidly deteriorating, so much so that Thompson believed he was suffering a severe anxiety attack, and that this was the cause of his symptoms. On Rodney's 3rd visit to the doctor's office, he was hyperventilating, prompting Thompson to inject him with an antipsychotic. Shortly after the injection, Rodney went into cardiac arrest and died just before 7 p.m. Initially, it was assumed by Thompson and the 48 others at the station that Rodney had died of natural causes, from either a massive heart attack or a stroke. Because Thompson was not equipped to perform an autopsy, Rodney's friends and family would have to wait at least 4 months for answers, as it was not safe to land a plane near the station until the end of the Antarctic winter. On October 30th, Rodney's body was transported to Christchurch, New Zealand, where an autopsy revealed the disturbing truth. Rodney Marks had died from ingesting approximately 150 milliliters of methanol. Methanol is a type of alcohol often used to clean scientific instruments in Antarctica, and even a small amount can be toxic to humans. This left only a handful of possible explanations for Rodney's death. Either he had consumed the methanol knowingly for recreational purposes or to commit suicide, or he had consumed it unknowingly, making his death a tragic accident or potentially a cold-blooded murder. Those that knew Rodney best did not believe that he would have consumed the methanol knowingly, saying that he would have known methanol was poisonous even in small doses, and that his behavior suggested no signs that he planned to commit suicide. However, investigators also found no solid evidence of foul play, and Rodney had no known enemies at the base. While this seemed to suggest that an accident was the most likely cause of death, it still didn't explain how such a large quantity of methanol could have made it into Rodney's system without his knowledge. The investigation into Rodney's death ultimately failed to provide any definitive answers, and according to some who worked on the case, received little cooperation from the National Science Foundation. The lack of clear jurisdiction in the case complicated matters further, as there was no system in place for handling possible homicides that happen in Antarctica. In 2008, a coroner named Richard McElry released a report saying that no conclusions could be drawn one way or the other about the circumstances surrounding the death of Rodney Marks. His poisoning remains a tantalizing mystery. On the evening of October 25, 1984, a 34-year-old unemployed food technician named Gunther Stoll was at home with his pregnant wife in Anshausen, Germany. He was sitting quietly in his bedroom until out of nowhere he shouted, "I've got it," while jumping up from his chair. According to his wife, Gunther then grabbed a piece of paper and quickly scribbled down 6 letters, before taking off in his car. The letters appeared to spell out YOGTZE, and would become just one of the many mysterious details from that night. Gunther was next seen at a nearby pub that he was known to frequent, where he ordered a beer. Before taking a drink, however, he fell to the floor, hitting his face. According to witnesses, he did not seem to be intoxicated, and appeared to suddenly lose consciousness. When he awoke, he left the bar and headed back to his vehicle, disappearing for the next 2 hours. At approximately 1 in the morning, Gunther showed up at the house of an elderly woman he had known from his childhood. When he told her about a horrible incident that was about to happen, she advised him to return home, and he agreed. At 3 a.m., 2 truck drivers discovered Gunther's crashed vehicle in a trench near a highway exit about 100 kilometers from where he had talked to the woman. They found him inside, naked and severely injured. Gunther told the drivers that he had been with 4 other men in the car, but they had run away. When asked if the men were his friends, Gunther said no. This would be the last piece of information he revealed before dying on the way to the hospital. An investigation into the mysterious death revealed that Gunther was injured before his vehicle crashed, causing police to theorize that he was hit by a car elsewhere before possibly being placed in the passenger seat of his vehicle and driven to the location where he was discovered. The truck drivers would later say that they had seen a man in a bright jacket near the wreckage, but that the person had disappeared by the time they made it to the scene. According to Gunther's wife, her husband had been paranoid that somebody was stalking him, often talking about an unknown entity that wanted to kill him. Though many have pointed to Gunther's strange behavior on the night of his death as evidence that he was experiencing paranoid delusions, many wonder if there is a meaning to the strange note he left behind, and whether it has anything to do with those who injured him and moved his car. Many wild and interesting theories have tried to explain the strange note in the years since. Some speculate that the note was actually meant to be a series of numbers rather than letters, possibly containing the license plate information of the person responsible for his death. Others believe that the letters are an anagram of the word zygote, and could refer to a mysterious secret he had uncovered related to his job as a food technician. Unfortunately, the original note is lost, as Gunther's wife threw it out before it could be obtained by investigators. Ultimately, none of these theories has led to concrete answers in the case, and the death of Gunther Stoll remains unexplained. Gary Devore was a Hollywood screenwriter, best known for action movies like The Dogs of War and Raw Deal. In June of 1997, he had just finished writing his latest script entitled The Big Steal, a story which supposedly focused on the highly controversial U.S. invasion of Panama at the end of 1989. Gary had moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico in order to complete the project, after complaining of writer's block and wanting to change his environment. When he was ready to return to his home in California, he decided to drive through the Mojave Desert. At approximately 1 o'clock on the morning of June 28th, he talked to his wife Wendy on the phone somewhere on his route. However, Gary never turned up at home, and an investigation into his disappearance soon began. The search for Gary Devore would ultimately prove much longer and stranger than anyone could have imagined. A year after he went missing, Gary's car was found in the water below a California aqueduct. His body was discovered inside, but was missing both hands. Though an early police report ruled the death accidental and concluded that Gary must have driven off of the aqueduct into the water, many believe that there are reasons to be skeptical of this claim. For starters, his laptop containing the screenplay was also missing, as was his gun. The aqueduct where Gary and his vehicle were found had also been extensively searched when he was first reported missing, and no evidence of an impact had been seen. Finally, in order for Gary to drive over the side of the aqueduct where his body and vehicle were discovered, he would have had to drive 3 miles on the wrong side of the road without being noticed. For all of these reasons, many have come to suspect a more sinister explanation for Gary's death. In particular, many point to the subject of Gary's screenplay and the possibility that he was murdered for uncovering government secrets. This theory was the subject of a 2014 documentary and book entitled The Writer with No Hands, which claimed that Gary had connections to the CIA and traveled to Panama while researching for his script. The film also suggested that shortly after his disappearance, men claiming to be government agents briefly entered Gary's home, taking with them more information about his story. This is further backed by statements made by Gary's wife Wendy, who said that her husband had received many calls from people in the government while working on his screenplay, and had seen him working with documents that he refused to explain to her. While these links are certainly interesting, there are ultimately no conclusive answers to be had. Whether Gary Devore was indeed the victim of a conspiracy, foul play, or something else entirely remains to be seen, and continues to drive speculation and conspiracy among those interested in his mysterious death. On December 1st, 1948, the police were called when the body of a man was discovered on Australia's Somerton Beach, about 11 kilometers southwest of Adelaide. The man was found lying in the sand, with his legs extended and his head resting on the seawall. A search of his pockets revealed personal belongings, including cigarettes, gum, an aluminum comb, and some matches. He also had an unused second-class railway ticket from Adelaide to Henley Beach, and a bus ticket which may have also been unused. Witnesses claim to have seen a person matching the man's description lying on his back in the same spot the previous night, though assumed he was simply drunk or asleep. At least one other witness reported seeing a well-dressed man carrying someone on his shoulders across Somerton Beach that evening, meaning that the unknown man may have been moved to the location where he was eventually found. An autopsy conducted on the man's body only deepened the mystery surrounding his death. Though the pathologist could find no conclusive evidence of a foreign substance in the body, he was nonetheless convinced the death was unnatural and believed the cause was poisoning. A more thorough examination of the man's clothes revealed what would become the most hotly debated piece of evidence in the case. In a small pocket sewn into the man's pants, investigators discovered a tiny piece of rolled-up paper with the words "Tamam Shud" printed on it. Officials were able to determine that the text had been ripped from an English version of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, a book of poetry attributed to a Persian scholar from the 11th century. Translated into English, the words "Tamam Shud" mean ended or finished. After an appeal to the public, a man came forward with the copy of the book that the scrap of paper had been ripped from. On the back cover, police found indentation marks from handwriting, and were able to identify a telephone number, another unknown number, and a series of letters believed to be an encrypted message. Because of the extremely short length of the letter, investigators hit a dead end attempting to crack the mysterious code. When they followed up on the telephone number contained in the cryptic message, they were led to the home of Jessica Thompson, a nurse who lived just down the road from where the body was discovered. Thompson claimed she did not know the dead man, nor did she have any idea why he would have her phone number, though said at some point earlier that year an unidentified person had attempted to visit her and asked her next-door neighbor about her. According to some reports, Thompson was evasive with police and didn't seem like she wanted to talk about the case. This has led many to believe that Thompson lied about knowing the dead man, a view that is shared by her own daughter. One theory of the case is that the unidentified man was a spy, as at least 2 sites close to Adelaide at the time were home to military research facilities. The death also coincided with a crackdown on Soviet espionage in Australia and a reorganization of the country's intelligence agencies, further driving suspicion that the man may have been connected to the intelligence community. However, this theory, like all others regarding the mysterious man, has never been confirmed. The Tamam Shud mystery remains one of Australia's most perplexing cases of unexplained death. On September 8, 1984, 17-year-old Kurt McFaul told his father Tom he was going to drive from their home in Concord, California, to spend the night at a friend's place in San Francisco. When he failed to return home the next evening, Tom began to grow concerned. A day later, Kurt's body was found half naked on a remote beach below the cliffs of San Francisco Bay. An autopsy revealed that Kurt had died from multiple traumatic injuries and severe blood loss, but a conclusion could not be reached about how these injuries had occurred. Though the police strongly believed the death was an accident, theorizing that Kurt had simply fallen from the cliffs to the beach below, Tom disagreed, saying that foul play must have been involved. When Tom searched his son's room, he found a knife made from a deer hoof, a necklace of stone and feathers, and drawings of witchcraft and violent fantasies. Though he knew his son had always been interested in fantasy games like Dungeons & Dragons and regularly participated in costumed events related to medieval times, this felt different. A phone call Tom received shortly after Kurt's disappearance seemed to confirm these suspicions, when a friend of his son's claimed that he had been involved in a dangerous cult and had feared for his life. Kurt had allegedly been pulled deep inside a group that was practicing pagan rituals in the months leading up to his death, and those around him had noticed a change in his attitude. Adding further suspicion to the situation was the fact that the group's leader, Gabriel Carrillo, was the person Kurt had stayed with in San Francisco on the weekend of his death. Carrillo claimed that the group he and Kurt were a part of was not a cult at all, that he had no control over any of the members, and that they were free to leave any time. He also claimed that on the night of Kurt's disappearance, the two of them had returned to his apartment, but that Kurt had been restless and had left to go to the beach at 3 a.m. The discovery of Kurt's car also raised further questions about his death. It was found near a golf course the day before the discovery of his body, with his driver's license on the floor, his keys on the seat, and a $20 bill in the glove compartment. A suit of armor he had made for his medieval events was also curiously missing from the trunk of the car. Perhaps most suspicious of all were the empty beer bottles found in the vehicle. Tom said that his son did not drink, and no drugs or alcohol were found in Kurt's system during his autopsy. This led Tom to believe that the vehicle had been staged. In a final disturbing twist, a woman is said to have called police 2 months after Kurt's death, claiming to fear for her life. She told them that she was part of a coven, and named 2 people that were supposedly threatening her. These same 2 names appeared in a letter Kurt had written just a month before his death, in which he allegedly stated that the 2 were, quote, evil beyond belief. Tragically, the death of Kurt McFaul still remains unexplained. While it is possible he simply fell in a tragic accident, it's hard to ignore the strange series of events leading up to his death. Hopefully one day, we will finally get some answers. That brings us to the end of our list. Are there any other unexplained deaths you think we should cover in a future video? Let us know in the comments section below. As always, if you enjoyed our video, don't forget to like and subscribe to Crime Zone for more true crime content like this, making sure to hit the notification bell to stay up to date with our latest videos. Thank you for watching.